To the tables down at Maurice, to the place where Louis dwells, to the dear old temple bar we love so well. Sing the whip and poos.
Good evening, my friends. My name is Bart Giamatti, and I want to welcome you, if I may, to Yale and to New Haven by coming here from 38 states, from America and Samoa, the Northern Marianas, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. You have made this a truly national meeting of the chief state school officers and college and university presidents and chancellors, a national meeting of elementary and secondary and higher education, which I think is almost without precedent. Because the central purpose of this meeting, among many others, however, is to draw national attention to the crucial role that higher education can and indeed, I think, must play in strengthening teaching in our schools.
The drama of America in its endless town meeting is to me something very beautiful. That is, as de Tocqueville put it, when in doubt, call a meeting. But I don't diminish that, because that signals the priorities that somehow shake us out of the tracks we're on. And the very fact that we leap out of those means something is stirring in our society that needs attention. And so the issue, what have you accomplished? Well, the accomplishment has been that people have come to New Haven.
I read that in your opening remarks you said that there are 4 problems. You mentioned 4 problems, nice alliterative problems: prestige, power, pay, and preparation. Which of those problems?
Those are with regard to teachers.
With regard to teaching, yeah. Which of those problems does this effort of this conference carve out and potentially solve?
Well, I suppose in an interesting way, we're not going to solve the problems of pay. And we're not going to solve the problems of power, whatever that may mean in any given institution. The extent to which school teachers and university faculty believe themselves engaged in a common enterprise that has dignity and purpose and juice in it, the extent that there are issues of prestige and self-worth, then I think, in fact, the modes of collaboration will address that in due course. And I think in terms of preparation, by which I mean the sense of how better to encourage people who do teach well to teach better, in ways that are not simply the boosting of morale, which goes to the other point, then I think there's been a great many ways in which that's been addressed in terms of the various case studies that we saw.
Mr. Ambach, what do you...
Well, I think we leave with a much better understanding of some of the specific projects that are underway. The stress here has been on practice, on what's actually happening. And although there may be some who have known about a particular project in Michigan or a project in North Carolina, a project in Louisiana, we may not have all known about those projects and what happened in order to put them in place in the particular locations. So I think we each carry away a certain very specific learning about some practice which has gone on elsewhere in the country. And I think we come away with a mutual concern that it's possible to replicate these kinds of practices elsewhere if we'll take the initiative to do so. And I think perhaps along the lines of prestige, one of the most significant points that's been made is the matter of the colleagueship among those who are in faculties in the colleges and universities and those who are in the elementary and secondary schools. We have our educational system very much split along horizontal divisions. There's very little vertical connection or integration, if you will, for the most part. And I think some very significant points have been made by way of what it means for the teacher in the elementary or secondary schools to be associated with faculty at the college and university level, in the sense of prestige, but I think more important in the sense of a commitment to scholarship, and a commitment to learning, to being on the forefront of learning, and in the sense mutual of an impact on the university level by way of a better understanding of, in fact, what is really going on in the schools.
Yes, ma'am.
Harvard Newell University system in Florida. If you're adding so substantially to human knowledge, one of our real problems is how do we make sure that all within the education system share. And it seems to me one of the major parts of the New Haven project, one of the very real reasons for the partnership, is to try to make sure that all teachers in the system have an opportunity to know how fields are changing, what the expectations of students are. And I think the subject matter in-service training is perhaps the most significant part of the partnership. And as we put our emphasis on subject matter, it also seems to me what we're saying is that the partnership has got to be far broader than schools of education. It has to cover the entire university community.
Finally, I stress the need to have continued schooling of the teacher. The data are absolutely shocking. Some have told us about 40% of the teachers have not had continuing education courses over the life of their high school teaching. This in science and mathematics as the field is changing. All of these, I stressed this morning, are obligations for both the schools and the colleges, and there are ways in which both of these institutions can focus on what I think is a comprehensive response to the problem of teaching excellence in the schools.
Mr. Francis.
One particular point is in the cooperation, collaboration, it's not a big brother, little brother situation. I think that came through, and if it was a message that had to come through, I think most of us understood the fact that you shouldn't approach it that way, but unfortunately many of us do so. But I think if the conference said anything, I think it said that we both have something to bring to the collaboration, and a mutual respect for what can take place, I think was an important point made at this conference.
Mr. Phillips, looking at it from the point of view of a school system administrator, confronted with all the myriad problems that you are in the schools, what piece of those problems does this area give you hope could be solved? We've heard President Giamatti's 4 Ps. What chunk of your problem could this, how realistic is it to think that you can carve off a piece of your problem with this effort?
Well, I guess I'd add the fifth, the possibility is the 5th P. And if you want to go out of the partnership, I mean, we can keep on. Since Phillips begins with a P, I'll add that too if you'd like.
Now, try a different letter. You're on a roll, guy.
This thing called education is a labor-intensive business. I think we all know that. Its quality, whether it's the public perception or our own perception, the quality of what happens is directly related to the quality of and the effectiveness of that labor. And which brings you to the moment and I think it was Ben Alexander in the panel yesterday who talked of the promotion side of it.
Well, everyone knows if Fords are not selling, we market and advertise. If clothing is not selling, we market and we advertise. If Coca-Colas are not selling, we market and we advertise. And what I stated was, this should be the same for education. You know, we should begin to say education is like a Coke. It's the real thing, and then people will understand that. We should say education is like a Hallmark card. It lets you be the very best. Or we can say education is like a Pepsi. It has a lot to give. But most of all, we should say education is like a slow poke sucker. It lasts a long, long time. Now, if we begin to do that, these are the things that students will understand.
We've sent the wrong signals to young people for a combination of reasons to why one should not be a teacher. Pay, prestige, concern, and I think that if this conference says anything else, it says in effect, look, teaching is not only a noble profession, but it's an important profession, probably one of the finest professions we have, and that hopefully we will bring to bear all of the other things that we've done for other professions, again, pay and the like, and we are now going to give a priority to it, a concern to it that it rightly deserves.
I also urge that we think carefully about recruiting young students early for the profession of teaching. I said I'm just tired of having us be told once again that the lowest academically are entering teaching. If we care about that, we're going to have to choose our gifted students when they're in school, junior high, high school, and said, I think you'd be a great teacher. And I'm convinced, just as we recruit athletes in the early grades, and I think that would have an enormous influence in shaping the minds of young people to say, oh, you think I can be a teacher?
To me, the single most important task that we have is to assure that there is a strong quality of teaching in our schools. The general public perception in this country is that we are in a surplus circumstance for teachers. We've gone through the 1970s, in which there have been tightening fiscal belts, in which there have been a decline in enrollment, and a general perception that there is an excess of teachers. We've got to carry out of that, we've got to be persuasive and informative that we're moving to a circumstance where there is a very substantial potential shortage of teaching personnel.
Does anybody else want to comment on that point? Of course, yes, sir.
John Sawyer and the Mellon Foundation. I would comment, and I hope I can reserve the right to a question afterwards, but I think Mr. Ambach's point is extremely important, that the sense of these new linkages that have been talked about at this conference may be very important in bringing forward into the teaching stream young people in the Bachelor of Arts degrees across the country who had, by discouragement of jobs or the image of the profession, been seeking other callings. I think there is a tremendous latent potential. We know that in the early 70s, about 20% of the students coming into higher education thought of teaching. And this last year, the ACE survey showed it had dropped to 4.7%. And I think the fact that jobs will pick up later in the 80s and 90s will offer opportunity to the kind of talent that this college-school interaction may help bring forward.
Anyone else want to comment on this, this idea? Yes, ma'am.
Flo McKenzie, Superintendent, Washington, D.C. While we talk about the bright young students entering the profession, some of us have the real problem of very low turnover rates. In Washington, we are down to about 2%, with a teaching force of about 5,000 to 600 persons. What do we do to revitalize and recharge those people who are going to be with us? Because the economic situation, as it worsens, persons are staying in the profession much longer. And that poses for us in Washington a very significant problem that we must grapple with, and we must have the assistance of the colleges and universities to deal with that issue.
I read in one of the addresses to the conference that I think on average, a great proportion of the teachers of the country had not in 10 years taken any form of further education or further course. Would you like to comment on?
The observation is not only for the District of Columbia, but it's for our school systems across the country, particularly, I think, right now in the East. In the state of New York, the numbers of first-year teachers this year is less than 2% of the total of all of the public school teachers in the state. And that same percentage has been true in the last 5 years, and the same percentage will probably be true in the next couple of years. So the matter of trying to address those who are currently in practice right now is perhaps even more important than recruiting for the future. The possibilities of providing a direct relationship, as true in the Yale project, direct relationship has been expressed in other projects, of having a real partnership there, not the big brother approach, and that was referred to earlier, but rather a co-equal approach, where there are college and university faculty members and administrators who are on a colleague basis working one-to-one with those who are in the schools. It seems to me has the most promise.
Let me just play the devil's advocate here a moment with this. Is there a danger that this conference, by its very weight and prestige, that you hope is going to have a positive rippling effect throughout the country in drawing attention to this aspect of the problem, may, by that prestige, divert attention from other aspects of the problem and create the sense that this is a panacea, that you're going to solve the problems of the schools by cooperation between colleges, universities, and local school systems?
I think if the conference had allowed itself to labor under that illusion, the danger you referred to is very real. The fact is the conference hasn't. I think the fact is that there's been a very healthy realism. What I take away from this is a renewed sense that there are limited and very real things that are possible to do. That the cooperation that has been manifest and for which there is a record in various parts of this country indicates to me that if one defines and clearly sticks with what one thinks one can do in a given locale, one can do a great deal, and one cannot become overwhelmed or paralyzed by the fact that one isn't solving all the problems of American education or American culture, all of which are there, but which the educational process will solve in the longer term if it's healthy every step along the way.
I just wonder, again, playing on this idea of the enormous prestige that you're bringing to bear and the attention you're attracting, do you give federal, state, and local government an excuse not to pay attention to the resources because they can say, oh, hey, here's a way of improving the quality of teaching, because the universities are going to come in and we're going to be able to share some of their academic excellence and prestige with our school teachers? Does this give them...
No, not at all. First of all, half of us are states or directly representing state resource. I think that there's an expectation, once again, of the public that unless the school systems and the colleges and universities can come together and in fact can design the agenda, can demonstrate that they are genuinely putting their resources together to meet the most difficult problems, then there is not a good case to be made to go to the public to try to draw the local or the state or the federal resources.
Can you push the improvement of the quality in the selection of teachers at the early stage and their training and development and career development without also concentrating on the resources that are available to pay them and give them, because isn't that the chief motive as well as loss of public image for them leaving the profession, for the huge exit of teachers into private industry? Can you discuss it in isolation from the resources necessary?
No, not at all. And I don't think it's been discussed in isolation.
President Giovanni.
I think that everybody here has worked all his life, her life, on the principle that people ought to be paid in this noble profession of teaching at a level that somehow allows them to live with some dignity. There's no doubt about all that. Fact is, there's also some evidence, at least from our little tiny efforts in one corner of New England, that shows that a fair number of the New Haven high school teachers who have gone 5 years through the Yale-New Haven Teachers Institute have told us that they have stayed in teaching in New Haven because of the presence of the Institute.
Even though their salaries haven't gone up?
Not necessarily. I mean, there are ways of making people not just feel better, but recharge themselves and engage the profession in the broadest sense of the word, keep up with scholarship, exchange ideas with other faculty colleagues who happen to be teaching at Yale. That has meant a good deal to people. While it has not necessarily been resulted in an increase in pay, but it has resulted in an increase in the kind of internal expansion that you undergo when what you're doing is taken seriously by everybody.
Is this realistic? I mean, could you alleviate any significant amount of teacher dissatisfaction in the, particularly in the secondary schools, for instance in Louisiana, by enhancing their professional lives this way, without at the same time causing the local school boards or the state or anything to pay them more?
You asked me first among equals. I would say right off, you've got to do both. Yeah. And I think to continue to assume that teaching is a labor of love and you do it for the cause, we've got to disengage that in the minds of the public. Number one, that if we're going to have the best minds teaching, and we need the best minds in teaching as we need the best minds in any of our critical national efforts, we are going to have to pay people for it. Unfortunately, when we say that, it's self-serving. So we don't say it at the beginning and we talk about all the nice other things. But let's be very crass about it. I don't think any of us are naive about we aren't going to get the kinds of teachers we want in any of our educational systems, in elementary and secondary, unless we pay them that total worth, as we are paying others that total worth.
What happens next? Is there an agenda? Do all the conferees here go out and spread the gospel? Do they have specific assignments? What happens from here?
Greg?
Nothing?
You may have just gotten your answer.
You've gotten your answer. That's symbolic. Each of us has a different course.
I think you you can assume that there will be other conferences. And I think there are people in this audience who represent varying aspects of what we've talked about who will need to take it another step after they have assessed what we've done here. So I think there will be other conferences, but I think for us, we all become missionaries in some way about what we've learned, what we have been motivated to do.
I think it's important to note you have 2,500 colleges and universities across this country. I think there's a feeling here that each and every one of those institutions has a responsibility. They may not be in the business of preparing teachers, but each and every one has a responsibility by way of helping with the recruitment, with the identification of persons who might become interested in teaching.
Mr. Giamatti, what happens from here for you?
Well, I'm going to stay the course, Mr. Yeah. I'll be happy to help.
Yeah, let us continue over here and stay the course over here.
I watch your program. You had a fellow on a couple of months ago that said, stay the course, and I'm going to stay the course. Frankly, I'm going to continue, because I'm a simple fellow, I'm going to work at the local level. We're going to continue to do in New Haven, with the New Haven Public Schools, what Yale's been doing and will continue to do. If that can be useful to New Haven, it is, from my point of view, not going to solve the country's problems, but it's going to help New Haven. And to the extent to which one can help as an institution and as a person, other places and other people, through this kind of forum or others, I'll obviously be involved because I care very much about it. But you asked me practically, what am I and Yale going to do? We're going to continue to do what we've been doing for 5 years and do it better.
The Yale-New Haven Teachers Institute was one of the models discussed at the conference and outlined in the Carnegie report, which the conference, which was released at the conference, which you could all look at, surveying all these various experiments across the country. Are there any of them coming out of this conference that automatically leap to mind as models that can be copied throughout the country, or are they limited to their local circumstances and application? Are there any good models that other people could just say, yes, transfer immediately? Replicate, I think is the word. The gentleman there has a comment.
My name is Steve Kagan from the state of Vermont. Well, first, I've been impressed with the kinds of projects that are presented here. But one of the things that disturbs me a little bit is that there haven't been enough examples proposed of ways in which universities and elementary and secondary schools can interact in a way in which their futures are truly intertwined, in such a way that the projects that are developed are not able to be jettisoned at a given point in time, where a university tries something and decides, well, we will stop cooperating 5 years from now, and neither the other institution will be hurt nor will we be hurt.
I think this gentleman had the next question.
After listening in detail to the Yale project and the Michigan project and the Syracuse project, that all of them help the high schools. Mr. Mayeroff comments in there that all of those projects seem to give a better feeling to the high school teachers about themselves and their profession. So this one person alone takes back from this conference a feeling that things can be done.
Really, the big model is the model of partnership, that it can be done. That's reflected in every one of the different ones.
I don't think there's been any attempt here for anyone to try to sell the rest of us on a single model or a single demonstration. On the other hand, I think there's a deep concern that unless there's a way to repeat what's being done, or somewhat repeat what's being done in one institution and another institution, then we wouldn't bother to be here.
Anyone want to pick up this? Mr. Cook.
Michael Cook from Yale University. The emphasis that I have heard throughout the conference and that I have experienced in my participation in the Yale-New Haven Teachers Institute is, first of all, we do not contend that somebody up there has knowledge and somebody down there receives it. We contend for the secondary school teacher, as we practice in college teaching, that training never ends. We train ourselves continually by reading, by writing, by teaching, and we say to the secondary school teacher, we believe, we hope we have something to contribute to what you're doing. We know you have something to contribute to what we're doing. And so there is a co-equal relationship, there is a partnership. This has been stressed, and I would like to keep that stress and avoid the idea of training.
Isn't one of the byproducts of the Yale-New Haven experiment that some of the secondary school teachers can teach the university professors how to teach?
It's not a byproduct, it's a central product. we do have our teaching practices revised, reformed.
I think this is all marvelous. I really must say, one of the myths we live under is that college teachers don't know how to teach and don't care how to teach. That's nonsense. I just don't want to get too enthralled with the mythology on both sides. One of the nice things about this conference is that it didn't get too deep into the uncut street stuff of myth. And just, you know.
That may be the frustration. It may be the frustration sometimes of a conference like this. You didn't promise more than you could deliver, and we come sometimes looking for more than what can be done. And then maybe that's the excitement about it all. We still have left some things to be done.
And so the issue, what have you accomplished? Well, the accomplishment has been that people have come to New Haven. More than that, they have, in my view, demonstrated a seriousness in their groping for an agenda, and make no question about it, it is groping, but that's the nature of the human condition. And so I can only say that sometimes I'm appalled at this effort and go home enormously depressed, but when it works, I go home exhilarated at what I can only call the endless American town meeting. Don't over-expect a conference to behave any better than your institution or the human race, because my own view of institutions and change is it begins in your head. If we go with a different view in our heads as to the nature of the problem as well as the nature of the possibility, God, a revolution has occurred, because that's where revolutions begin.
Now